Hello, all. I welcome you all to today's discussion. At Psych Reads exclusive club, we have begun this series of discussion, which we'll be doing on weekly basis. We'll be taking small topics and we'll be discussing it. Firstly, we'll be going through the topic and then we can take your doubts at the end. So do keep your doubts at the end. We'll be addressing it. So today's topic is that we'll be discussing regarding the thought phenomena. And this is the first topic that we'll be covering. So the week two section will be having the first topic, that is psychopathology discussion, that is thought phenomena. Okay. And tomorrow we'll be having psychopharmacology discussion, in which we'll discuss and we'll start with antipsychotic. And the antipsychotic in discussion will be olanzapine. Okay, that too will be a live session. So the recordings will be shared to you all. Don't worry. The best would be to just focus on the lecture and to get a printout of your workbook and start filling it. Okay. I request all of you to please mute yourself, otherwise, it will be interrupting and will hamper the experience. Please do mute yourself. Okay. Elsa, please mute yourself. Okay, fine. So today, this is what we are going to discuss: thought phenomena. Ego boundary will be discussing what is ego boundary, what is the concept of ego boundary, because generation of thought and ego boundary are something which we need to understand. Then only we'll be able to understand what are the various thought phenomena that has been described, be it thought insertion, thought broadcast, and thought withdrawal. So first thing first is we should know the concept of ego boundary. This is very important because it is like a boundary which actually confines or defines a uh, margin under which our thoughts are considered to be as our own. That is, there is a sense of myness. So it defines sense of myness. Okay. So it defines sense of myness. And this is very important because if this gets breached, okay, if this portion gets breached, then it will lead to something which is known as these phenomenons. Okay. So that is why ego boundary, the concept of ego boundary is very important. So looking into the concept of ego boundary, so this is a very schematic diagram which I have drawn. You won't find it in any of the textbook. Okay, neither in Swish, SIMS or any of the textbook of psychopathology, be it Oxford or Taylor. But for us to understand, consider this as to be your brain. So this is your brain, and I have drawn an artificial boundary that we are going to call as ego boundary. And in the center of the brain, we have something which is known as the thought generator. What is the role of thought generator? The role of thought generator is to generate thoughts. And this thought generator has a very specific thing and a very special thing in it, that whatever thought is being generated, a kind of tag is being given to it. Suppose this is my thought, Manish. So the thought will be tagged with it. As a result of which, what will happen? This tag will actually helps the brain to identify, okay, this thought is being generated by the agency which is inside me. So thought generator generates thought. We'll write it down, don't worry. First understand the concept, then only we'll be able to understand the rest of the thing. So the role of thought generator is to generate thoughts with a kind of signature in it, by virtue of which the brain recognizes that this thought is generated by its own generator. Okay. And this boundary that we are showing over here, this boundary actually defines that whatever thoughts are there inside will be considered to be one's own. If suppose this boundary gets breached, Okay, we'll see in the next picture. If suppose this boundary gets breached, then it will lead to either going out of the thoughts by the permeation, or the thoughts from outside will come inside from the permeation. Okay, so whatever thought is generated by thought generator is considered to be as own, and whatever thought remains inside the ego boundary, that is also considered to be as own. So these are the two important things that makes one's thoughts recognized as own. So first is the thought generator, and the second is the ego boundary. Okay, so this thought generator is also called as the agency. uh, I request you all to please mute yourself. Okay, this thought generator is also called as the agency. So let's understand what we have discussed. Dr. Jhansi, please mute yourself. It is disturbing all of us.
పర్లేదు లేరా, నేను క్లాస్ వింటున్నాను. తర్వాత ఇది లేట్ అవుతుంది. ఎలాగో మీకు ఎప్పుడు డిన్నర్ అయిపోయిందా? అవ్వక ముందే వేసుకోమని చెప్పారా? సరే, ఎప్పుడైనా ఓకే నాకు.
So the concept was, this is a thought which is being generated by something which is known as thought generator. So thought generator generates thought, and this thought is actually, suppose let's write it as T. It has a tag. Suppose my name is Manish, so I am attaching a tag with this thought. By virtue of this tag, this is being recognized as my own thought. I request all of you to please mute yourself. Otherwise, I'll mute everyone and we won't be able to discuss later on. By the help of this tag, recognized as one's own thought. Now, the second part is that this thought should remain within ego boundary. Hmm. Should remain within the ego boundary. If it remains within the ego boundary, it will be considered as one's own thought. And if escapes the ego boundary, the thought becomes alien. that is not considered to be as own. Okay. Suppose, let's take a very alternate situation. Suppose this thought, which I have labeled as TM, this signature actually is being given by the agency, or that is called as the thought generator. Suppose this agency gets hijacked by some outside force. So your thought is being hijacked by an outsider, which can be called as an alien. And if instead of your thought generator working, someone's someone consider it as like a force that is actually doing the thought generation process, what will happen? Because your thought generator was working, so this label was being placed with this thought. Now if this thought generator gets hijacked, it will not be able to work and thus will not be able to put that label. Okay. And if that happens, that this label is missing, again that thought will not be considered to be as one's own, not be able to place that label. So thought recognized, not recognized as one's own. Okay. So this is the concept of ego boundary and thought generator. Fine. Let's move ahead. Now see what is this condition and what is happening to this diagram. So look at this. There are small permeations in the ego boundary. Okay. So this is a very faulty situation, that such an ego boundary is there which is having permeation. So whatever thought is being generated, this ego boundary is not able to restrict it within its boundary. So what is happening? This thought which is being generated goes out of the ego boundary. Same way happens with this thought, it also goes out. Vice versa, what can happen? Outside thought can come inside, like this is happening with this. So here also, suppose the thought can come inside. So this is a faulty ego boundary, or technically it is called as permeation of ego boundary. So this is a permeated ego boundary, okay, because of these things. Fine. And now, so we have seen what is permeation of ego boundary. Let's look at the other aspect. Look at this thought agency. Please do mute yourself, everyone. So what is happening? See, this thought agency, earlier, the thought agency was placed inside one's own brain. And whatever thought they are generating, they are able to place a kind of label. That is for our understanding. Now, what is happening with this agency is that this agency is being taken over by the alien agency. Okay, taken over by Alien agency. Now, what is happening? No labeling of thoughts. And the thought becomes thought not recognized as own. Okay. So, this is what is the condition. Ego boundary, it prevents outside influence of thoughts and keep one thoughts within the mind or within the boundary. And if the permeation happens, there can be inflow or outflow of the thought, and thus it will escape one's own mind. Second thing which can happen is when the ownership of the agency is being breached. So what is happen if the ownership of the agency is lost? This actually what is the normal thing that is happening, that it makes one's thought and individual is able to recognize as its own. But if the agency is lost, what will happen? See, if the agency is lost, one can't recognize one's own thought as its own. So here, your thought is not recognized as your own. In this condition, though your thoughts are there, but it is escaping your mind, so your brain is not able to capture it. So there is either outflow of the thoughts or there can be insertion or the inward flow of the thoughts. So in either of these condition, your thoughts will be lost, or you might be able to perceive some another thought which will not be considered as your own. So this is the very basic of it. Either there can be breach of ego boundary or loss of ownership of the agency. These are the two conditions. Fine. Now let's move ahead. Let's look into the concept of thought alienation phenomenon. First thing that we'll be discussing will be thought broadcast. And in thought broadcast, I'll be discussing the article that has been given by a very classic article. I'll share it in the group if you ask. You can download it also. But this is the classic article that was written by Pawar and Spence. Here, thought broadcast, they have given three definitions, and we are supposed to remember each one of them. Today we'll be discussing each and every definition, that is all the three definition. We'll be looking into the various details that has been mentioned in those definition, which definition is broad definition, which definition is narrow definition, and who gave all these definitions. And then we'll move ahead with the other thought phenomenon. So first we are going to complete the thought broadcast. So in thought broadcast, the first definition is, look very carefully. They mention that the patient hears his own thought being spoken aloud, and as a consequence, other people are able to hear his thoughts as well. Fine. So what is happening? One's own thought is being available to others. Okay, it is being available to others. How it is being available to others? Because see, this individual is able to hear his own thought. And because he is able to hear his own thought, by virtue of this, this thought is being available to others. So this part is very specific in this definition, that your own thought is first being heard by you. As you are able to hear your own thought, it will be available to others. And if this part is missing, thought broadcast cannot be made according to this definition. So this part is very, very important, that the individual should be able to hear his or her own thought. Now, the very common confusion that we have as a resident is what about the mechanism? This definition doesn't mention about any mechanism by which this should happen. So there is no description of mechanism. So this actually definition is a very narrow definition. Why? Because see, narrow and broad means narrow definition means every part or every detail of the definition should be met. Otherwise, what will happen? Otherwise, what will happen? Otherwise, what will happen? That you will not be able to fulfill the definition, and thus the psychopathology won't be, the impression cannot be made. Important thing is this definition was given by Emil Kraepelin, and this same definition has been given in these two scales, the present state examination, ninth version, and SAPS. Present state examination was given by Wing et al. And SAPS was given by Nancy Anderson. So these two authors have also used this same definition that your thought should be available to others only when you are able to hear your own thought. Okay, what you are talking, uh, Dr. Rahul will be discussing in it in a while. So I think you should go and look into the workbook that has been shared. Look into the topics, then you'll be able to frame your question so that the flow doesn't get interrupted. Okay, no issues. We'll be discussing that point also. Okay, now let's go to the second definition. Now, second definition is a broad definition. Why? See, second definition says that the patient is able to experience his own thought escaping silently, and they may or may not be available to other people. So, one's own thought escapes silently, and it is being, so there are two conditions. It may be available or may not be available to others. And here also, no mechanism has been described. The only thing is, individual should be able to recognize that his or her thought is silently escaping. This is the second component of this definition. And it may be available to others or may not be available. So if other individual are able to grasp their thought, that is also fine. And if they are not able to get the thought, that is also fine. So it becomes a broader definition. That means the parameters are a bit loose. So either of these condition, either this or this should be there. So either of these two conditions can be there and it will qualify for the definition of thought broadcast. So this is the first component, second component, and third component. Here also in this definition, no mechanism has been described how it will escape silently. So don't focus on the mechanism. If the patient is able to describe the mechanism, well and good. If the patient is not able to describe the mechanism, how this thing is happening, then also that doesn't prevent us to make a to label a psychopathology as thought broadcast because no definition has been mentioned. Both in the first definition also no mechanism was mentioned how the individual will be able to hear their own thought, and the second definition also no mechanism has been mentioned. This was given by Miller. And again, it resembles the same definition that was given by Kohler. See, multiple authors will give multiple definition. I have tried to club it up after going through the article so that you don't have any issue while giving the references. So this first definition is true as because it was given by Kreplin. The same definition was given by Nancy Anderson. So you shouldn't be getting confused. That is why I have kept it and clubbed it together. Coming to the third definition. Now see, it's a very narrow definition because all the components, three components, should be fulfilled for a psychopathology to be labeled as thought broadcast according to the third definition. It was given by Schneider. So the first one was given by Kreplin, second one was given by Meller, and third definition was given by Schneider. What are the three component? Please mute yourself. All of you are requested to please mute yourself. Yeah. So first is that the thought broadcast is happening because other people are able to. This part is very important. The thought broadcast is happening because other people are able to. What they are able to? Think in unison, participate in the thought, or they share the patient's thought directly by some other means. Okay. Other individuals should be able to think in unison. They should be able to participate in individual's thought, and or they should share the patient thought by any means. So in this definition also you see that no description of mechanism is there. No description of mechanism has been mentioned. So again, these three components should be fulfilled. If someone is able to fulfill it, you should be able to label that thought phenomena as thought broadcast. This is very important. Always remember this. Schneider never said it to be a thought broadcast. He said something which is known as Gidan. I'm not able to pronounce it. Okay, it's a German term. But he said something which you should always remember: diffusion of thought or thought diffusion. This term was given by Schneider, but English translation of this German term is either thought diffusion or diffusion of thought. Thought broadcast term per se was not given by Schneider. Okay, thought broadcast term was not given by Schneider. What he mentioned as thought broadcast was diffusion of thoughts or thought diffusion. So always remember this. His description was similar to thought broadcast, but English translation of his description turns out to be diffusion of thought, but this is the third definition. So what are the characteristics of the this definition? One's own thought is called as thought broadcast because others are able to do three things. What are those three things? Think in unison. The second part is participate in thought. And they are able to share. Share the thoughts. How it is happening? What is the mechanism? No. No description of mechanism is there. This same definition, which was given by Schneider, was also given by Jaspers and Fish. Okay, so this is also important that the third definition is a definition which was same in description, which was given by Schneider. This definition of thought broadcast is same that was given by Carl Jaspers, and also this definition is same as that was given by Frank Fish. So always remember who and whose definition, whose description matches to the original one. The first description was given by Kreplin, Nancy Anderson and Wing et al. The present state examination matches with it. The second description was given by C.S. Meller, and the description by Kohler is same as that of the description by Meller, which is the second definition. Third definition was given by Schneider, and the description is similar to that which was given by Jaspers and also by Fish. Now, coming to this important term, which I think one of the Dr. Rahul said regarding Gidan Kenlot Vardhan or Eco de la Pens. This is something which we'll be discussing in one of the discussion which we'll be having later on. This is called as thought echo. Thought echo. This is thought echo. So the first definition, that is individual is able to hear one's own thought. There are two descriptions of it. One is Gidan cannot Wharton. So Gidan cannot Wharton, what happens? Like, suppose this is a thought. Thought originates at this point and it ends at this point. And right from the generation of the thought till any point before it ends. Before it ends. So this is the point. So the thought is happening and the individual is able to hear it during the process of generation of thought, either at the beginning or when the thought is occurring. So, Gidan Lot Warden is a condition in which individual is able to hear its own thought in two conditions: while it is originating or while the thought process is taking place. Okay. Eco de la Pens is a is also thought echo, but the description varies. So here the description is, so this is the origin, and this is the end. So throughout the process of generation of thought, individual is not able to hear it. The moment the thought is generated, this is the point when individual is able to hear it. Individual, I'll write it down in the note section. Okay. So in Eco de la Pens, first complete generation of thought occurs, and once it ends, during this point, here the individual is able to hear it. Okay, so this is very important. Gedan cannot Vardhan, individual can hear it right at the beginning or throughout the process of generation, but it should occur before it ends. So either this can happen here or can happen throughout the process of generation. Ecodilapens, the description is totally different. No thought will be heard at the origin or throughout the process the thought generation is occurring. It will be able, the individual will be able to hear its own thought once the thought generation is complete. Once a thought comes to an end, that point the individual will be able to hear it. Okay, I hope this part is also clear. Now let's move to some other part. Thought insertion, the second thought phenomena, thought insertion. Now here also I have taken this very classic article. This is also by Spence, but the first author is Mullins. Earlier, the article was by Pawar and Spence. So here also we have to look into some of the mechanism, but we have already read the mechanism. So now the understanding part becomes very easy. We don't have to deal much into the mechanism. We can directly go with the flow chart. So here it has been, now we are easily will be able to understand that thought insertion can occur in two of the condition. See, thought insertion, what does it mean? That whatever thought the individual is able to hear, like for example, a thought is there. So the thought is present, and this thought actually is considered as not his own because it's someone else's thought. How it can happen? If an individual says that someone else's, that this is not my thought, it is someone else's thought, how it can happen? It can happen firstly if the ego boundary is intruded or there is permeation. If there is permeation of ego boundary and there is inward flow of thoughts, there is inward flow of thoughts, this can happen. Then what will happen? This thought doesn't have that label. Now, if when your brain is interpreting this thought, the brain will look for that label which we have discussed. So, suppose this is my thought, it should have the label of, suppose this is a very schematic representation that this is my thought. But here, if someone else's thought is there and it is having a label like this, the brain will be not able to process, the brain will not be processing this thought as my own. The brain will only process this thought to be my own. So what will happen? Now brain will say that this is not your thought, it is some other thought which has been inserted from outside, because it is an inward flow of thought which is happening because of breach of ego boundary or permeation of ego boundary. This is the first scenario. Now let's look into second scenario. So this is the first scenario which we have discussed. Moving to the second scenario, it can also happen when the agency or the thought generator is being hijacked or it becomes alien. That there are faulty generation of thoughts. So normally, what happens? This is how your thought is being generated by thought generator. Okay, this is normal. In abnormal condition, what can happen? It will only generate thought as this. The tag will not be placed by the thought generator because it is faulty, and that faultiness is being called as loss of ownership. It means that someone else is controlling the thought generator, by virtue of which that agency doesn't remain your own. And In thought level, we can understand this by this example that the generator is not able to place that label. Okay. In both of the condition, first condition and the second condition, I'm repeating the second condition again. Let's hear it very carefully. What is happening? Normally, this happens that whatever thought is being generated, it is there with a tag, which the brain is able to decode it and say that this is this person's thought and will be considered as one's own. If that becomes faulty, the agency or the this part. Come on, let's look. This part becomes faulty. This is the agency, no? This part becomes faulty. It will be generating thought but would not be able to place that label. So the brain will not be able to process. The thoughts are being generated, but because that label is missing, that will be considered as a foreign thought or an alien thought. And thus, this is how that thought will be in this condition. Because the agency is not working properly, the brain has lost the ownership on that agency or the thought generator and it has become alien. Okay. In both these scenario, be it the first scenario, be it the second scenario, there is loss of minus, that you don't consider your thought to be as your own. There is loss of minus. And alienation experience becomes evident in these people. Alienation experience means now individual will be saying that these thoughts are not mine. Someone else is placing these thoughts in my brain, in my mind. Either there is breach in the ego boundary, that is one of the possible mechanism by virtue of which outside thoughts is getting inside the mind of this person, or the inside generator, the thought generator, is not being able to place that kind of label which is usually being placed, as a result of which brain is not able to recognize that thought as one's own. Fine. In both of these scenario, the thought will be considered to be of someone else, and the individual will say that these thoughts are being implanted. Fine. Thought insertion was also described in the same manner by Jasper, in the same manner by Taylor and by Kohler. But these are the terms in which they have described this. Implanted thought, the term was given by Jasper. Taylor described it as experience of alienation, and Kohler described it as passive experience of alienation. That means passive experience means the individual is not being able to control. Please mute yourself, everyone. Not being, I'll write it here. Passive means individual is not being able to control. Now, someone has written in the chat, is it same as delusion of influence? No, because these are thought phenomenon and delusion is not a thought phenomenon as description goes for the thought phenomenon. Okay, delusion is a completely different psychopathology. So, because it is not a delusion, it's a thought phenomenon that we are discussing. Delusion is not mentioned in these thoughts phenomenon. So, delusion, the description of delusion will be totally different. These are specific thought phenomenon that we are discussing. So, delusion of influence doesn't come under this. Just wait for some time. You'll be able to understand this. Now, the definition of thought insertion is the subject experiences thoughts that are not his own and is intruding into his mind. All these 3 points should be there. That subject experiences thought that are not his own, uh, experiences thought not his own, and intruding into his mind.
Nana?
Please mute yourself, Dr. Kader. These are the three component. This was given by Wing et al. Remember, we discussed present state examination was given by Wing. This is same description that was given by Fish, Miller, and Wing. This same definition. Now, what is called as influence thinking? This is an extra edge topic which I have included here. So, this is something that is different, and how it is different. See, patient own thoughts are being controlled or influenced by outside force. This description should come that the individual is able to recognize that someone outside is being able to control his thoughts or influence his thoughts. Now, it is quite confusing at times to discuss influence thinking because it is actually similar to what other thought phenomenon are. The only thing is that the individual will be able to say that someone is there outside which is controlling or influencing the thoughts. Now here the problem is that that if you go to the belief part, the false fixed belief, then it might appear like a delusion. But keeping it strictly onto the basis of thought phenomenon, the discussion goes, here the individual is not able to control the thoughts, as a result of which it becomes passive phenomenon. Write it down, it will become clear. Passive phenomenon, because individual is not able to control. And the individual is made to think specifically by an outside force. Remember made and passivity phenomenon. Okay, so this is something similar to that. This is something similar to that. Remember, made and passivity phenomenon is being described in SFRS, the Schneider's first rank symptoms. In that, it has been described, and and this same description has been given for the thought as made in passivity thinking. So now there is a very important thing that I would be sharing in the group once the lecture is over, that there is a very controversy that is going on between made and passivity phenomenon and delusion of control. See, if you look into the description of Schneider's and also by the description of PSC, we can write it down that what is the controversy. Controversy is nothing but the description is totally different. The description part is totally different. So, see, so as described by Schneider, it is called as passivity experience. That is made affect, made impulse, and made volition. But the same description when was given by Wing et al. In PSC, present state examination. This is also a interview schedule. Wing et al. Here, what happened that instead of made affect, made impulse, and made volition as different, they clubbed it together as delusion of control. Okay, that is why the description is there. The confusion is there. It is just that Schneider defined it in this manner, and in PSC it has been defined as delusion of control. Fine. Now, see, influence thinking is also a thought phenomenon. However, the description of influence thinking might give an expression of or a hint towards delusion of control. But in delusion, the belief system is something which should be questioned. Here, merely the thought is being taken into consideration, nothing else. Okay, these descriptions are quite overlapping. So, this is why I have kept it something which you can remember it, can be asked in Viva. Similar to made and passivity feelings, impulse and volition, there is made and passivity thinking also. I hope it is clear now. We'll come to delusion of mind reading, don't worry. Delusion of mind reading again is a delusion. That is not thought phenomenon. Individual will be able to describe delusion of mind reading with some kind of more elaborate uh, description. Okay, there will be other parts of delusion which you'll be able to establish. In thought, merely thought will be discussed, that some part of my thought is being taken control by someone else. I'll come to an example, don't worry, I'll share it. So let's complete the summary first. This summary is important because see, thought insertion, ego boundary is, now we can fill it down. It's very easy if we have listened to me carefully for the past half an hour. This part is very easy because now we are able to know that okay, in thought insertion the ego boundary was permeated. In thought withdrawal also it is permeated. Okay. In influence thinking also, because others are able to influence the thought of an individual, it is also permeated. But obsession is a thought phenomenon that is not, in which the ego boundary is not permeated, because individual is able to recognize that it is his or her thought, so it is intact in this. Now the direction is, in thought insertion the direction is inwards. Thought withdrawal, the direction is outwards. In influence thinking, someone from the outside is able to influence your thought, so it is inwards. Because, and in obsessive thinking, nothing of such thing is happening because ego boundary is intact. Coming to the agency. Now see, in thought insertion we have read that either the ego boundary should be breached or the agency is lost. Both the things can also happen. Here the agency is being taken over by the alien. The agency, the tagging part of the thought is being lost. Same thing happens with thought withdrawal also. It can happen that because your thought is not being recognized as your own, it might be possible that you are not able to recognize the thought, hence you are skipping it. That is why agency is considered to be alien over here. In influence thinking also, you have lost your agency because now what is happening? Someone from outside is able to control your thought. Your thought generation process is not in your hand. Rather, your thought, see, this is, I'll I'll draw a simple thing so that you will be able to understand. See, a stimulus is being given to the thought generator. This is for the influence thinking, okay? This is for the influence thinking. Thought generator, we are describing. Like the stimulus is being given to the thought generator, and the thought generator is able to generate thought with a label, suppose. In influence thinking, this part is okay. This part is okay. The problem part is this, that someone else is making me think like a particular way, in a particular manner. So this stimulus, which actually leads to thought generation, this is faulty over this part. Okay. So the individual says that the thoughts are mine. Okay. But these thoughts I am not thinking. Someone else is making me think like this. Fine. So the individual recognizes that these thoughts are mine. I am not denying it. The only issue is that at this moment, I was not going to think like this. It was someone else from outside who is controlling the thought generator and is generating my thoughts in a different manner. I don't want to think like this, but someone else is making me do that. Now, this is why this concept of thought position is there. We'll complete the table and then we'll go. So here also, influence thinking, it is alien. Now I hope you are able to understand the description needed more part, this stimulus part. By virtue of this, it becomes alien because the thought generator control is being lost. Obsessive thinking, it's your own because your own thoughts are being recognized as your own. So you don't have to label it as alien. Now, thought position. See, thought position. Let's first deal with obsessive thinking. Thought position, you are able to recognize your thoughts are as your own and you possess that thought. Okay, you say that these thoughts are my own and these are my own thought which I am having. So it is your own that you are able to possess that thought. In influence thinking, see, these kind of thought, normal kind of thought are being generated. The only problem was that I don't want to think like this at this moment. Although the thoughts are mine, but someone else is making me think like this. These thoughts are not foreign, these are my own, but I don't want to think like this. Someone else is making me to think like this. So here also the position of thought is one's own. Okay. Now in thought insertion and withdrawal, what will happen? See, in thought insertion, what will happen? That the thought which has been inserted in your mind will be considered to be as alien. These are not my thoughts and I don't possess it. So here it becomes alien. And in thought withdrawal, your own thought is being recognized to be going outside, that it has been taken away. Here also, the thought position is your own, but you are not able to retain it. Your thought has been are being lost. That is why the ownership becomes own. Okay. I think my audio is a bit. I'm not able to hear your voice. Only I'm here to. I'm having some kind of technical issues, which will be getting resolved by tomorrow. So if any doubt is there as of now, you can message me in the chat section. By this, we come to the end of the discussion that we have discussed today. That uh, these are the various thought phenomenon, and these are the various kind of mechanism. These are the various definition, and with the help of the chart, we were able to summarize it in a single page. No, now you don't have to worry about it. If you understand the mechanism, Things are very easy. Psychopathology is very easy, very interesting. The only thing is it has to be broken down into various small sections. And once you are able to discuss that, once you're able to understand that, you'll be able to label the patient's content, the whatever the patient says in a very easy manner. Okay. In the group, I'm sharing the difference where it has been discussed, Schneider and PSC. How the things becomes confusing, it is just because of the description and nothing else. Okay, I've shared it in the group. Okay, so thought phenomenon is passive and delusion is active belief, sir. See, thought phenomenon, the passivity part is there, means individual is not being able to control it. Individual doesn't have anything over it because no mechanism is described and an individual doesn't want it. That is very unique of SFRS because thought phenomenon all have been mentioned in SFRS also. So whatever be the thought phenomenon, they are all unwanted and the individual is distressed, be it thought broadcast, thought withdrawal, or thought insertion. This is very specific of SFRS that the individual doesn't want any of the symptoms in SFRS. Okay, individual doesn't want any of the symptoms and they are considered to be as unwanted and distressed. Delusion is active belief. Delusion is active belief. The problem is that what we are discussing is thought. We are not discussing about delusion. So that is why the delusion part becomes different. Okay, suppose if you go by what I have shared a chart over in your WhatsApp group, the delusion of control, now this part, influence thinking, made and passivity, thinking we are labeling over this. But made and passivity thinking, if you look into the made phenomenon and the passivity phenomenon as described in PSE, that is described as delusion of control. So this psychopathology might be discussed as made and passivity thinking according to Schneider or according to Jasper, but according to Wing et al., who has given present state examination, it will be labeled under delusion of control. So the description varies. That is why I've shared that chart. That will clear the confusion. In your exam, be specific in this that all these are thought phenomenon, all these are something which you should be describing as thought phenomenon and not as delusion. If there is extra bit of information that is being provided by the patient and there are other domains to it, okay, that kind of belief, how it developed, how it happened, and that kind of description is there on top of these, then this will also be a part of your delusion. But while describing these phenomena, it will be separate. It can be a part of your delusion, but that will need some extra bit of information or detailed elaboration of it. That is why it is different. So if thought is heard by own Jyotirmay, I first, as in the case of thought broadcast, won't it be first person? That is only the same thing. First person auditory hallucination. If you just go and to look into the chart that I have shared, go and open your WhatsApp exclusive club group. There, thought echo, audible thoughts or thought echo or these commentary, it is actually first person auditory hallucination. So it is fine. You are correct. Okay. So I hope you all have enjoyed today's lecture and today's discussion. If there are any further doubts, don't hesitate. The group is open. Go through the lecture, write your own notes, fill up the workbooks. If still you are having any kind of doubts, please, the group is open. You can uh, place up your question over there. I'll be more than happy to discuss it. Okay, I'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay, this is the motto of Exclusive Club, right? We want focused people to be into this group. Any readings to do in additions to This, sir, yeah, I'll send you three articles. Three articles, as I've discussed in the guidelines or the in the instructions, that after every discussion, I'll be sending you the article which I have discussed here only, and there will be some articles which will be like an add-on reading to it. If you want, definitely I'll be share it with you. Just place this message in the exclusive club group that kindly do share the articles as mentioned in today's class. I'll be sharing it. Don't worry. Okay, okay, Bharat. So with this, we come to the end of today's lecture, and I hope you all have enjoyed it. Okay, thank you. How is agency taken over in thought withdrawal? Isn't just the ego boundary supposed to be permitted? No. In thought withdrawal, either of the thing can happen. See, if ego boundary is permeated, thought is being draining out. That part is clear. Now, what will happen? See, this is a very alternate like kind of
हाँ,
thing which
आ गया ना।
you should understand. Please mute yourself, Vishnu. So, if this is your brain and this is the thought generator, if it is being taken over, alien takes over the thought generator. Normally, what was happening? Normally, see, thought was labeled. Now, if the alien takes over, what will happen in abnormal condition? Thought won't be labeled. So, if you go to the other details of it, so if your thought is being present like this, it will be processed as it is being recognized. Okay. If this is your thought, because of faulty generator, it might not be processed. Processing is hampered in this. Good that you asked this question. Processing is hampered in this. As a result of which, what will happen? See, if this is the flow of the thought and this is a faulty thought in between, only one, sorry, only one, two, and four will be processed in brain. An individual will say that three, five, and six are lost. So it has been taken away. I hope this is clear now. I'll share the article. You'll read it, and then you'll be able to understand more. This is basic the gist of what has been mentioned. Okay. So I think we can conclude today's session. We have already discussed it for 1 hour, and I hope you all have enjoyed. Okay. Thank you, Mitesh. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate any like, and please do ask any queries regarding today's class. That is why I wanted it, because in WhatsApp discussion, what happens that the flow is very, you know, the continuous kind of flow is not there. So that is why I wanted to create a platform where we all can discuss. Still, you are having any doubt? Most well, like you are most welcome that you can come and discuss in the WhatsApp group. Okay. Thank you.